I wanted to keep it cold. Hello, and welcome back to Stitch and Chris. My name is Chris. I'm a Texas-based knit and crochet enthusiast whose obsessions are wool, wine, and whiskey. So today we are back for episode 4 of the Stitch and Chris podcast, and we're going to be talking about 2 main projects. However, even though it's only 2, there's a lot that goes into one of them. I've been saving it for a bit. It was going to go in the last episode, but we'll talk about it now. And then, of course, as always, we're going to go through the learning curve, and that's where I go through one of my past projects I've done and kind of tell you what I learned from it, what I do it again, and this one I think is a very good one. Like, simple but good. So yeah, after all of that, let's get into it. Grab a drink, let's talk stitches. I bought these wine glasses for a reason and I fucking love them. Oh, exactly what I needed right now. So today's drink is, okay, Let me preface real quick. So I constantly am saying like, oh, I'm obsessed with wool, wine, and whiskey. That is all entirely true. So I was like, well, let me actually start showing off what kind of wines I got right here. Today's wine is one of my favorites. It is the Dow Chardonnay. It's the table wine that they have. Pretty easy, pretty affordable. My friends gave me a bottle of it last year for my birthday, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. I don't particularly like Chardonnays that are buttery or like overtly fruit forward. I like a good oaky Chardonnay. Like anything more robust, like that's really gonna get my palate going right here. So like, for instance, I don't like the butter Chardonnay. I don't like as much as I like bread and butter pickles, and that's a controversial topic anywhere and everywhere. Don't know why, but it is. I can't stand their Chardonnay. It's disgusting. I would also say that this one just like really hits everything that I'm looking for in one. I know where to get it. It's not that expensive. It is a screw top, but I'm like shocked at like what that is. And I know as like wine snobs, we shouldn't be looking down on cork versus screw top because the way the wine industry is going, it has to go towards screw top. We are running out of cork. And so that's kind of where it's all at. And this is a perfect example of it. So if you want, go get the Dow Chardonnay. This is not sponsored. I'm just a mini alky. So that's kind of where I got to go here. And it's in my wine glass from Sur La Table. I love them. I was going for something like, I didn't want regular like bell-shaped ones, and I didn't want like super modern, but these ones remind me, let me see if I can. These ones remind me of like if you are at like a fun summer picnic, or if you are drinking with like a king, but they're different, but they're not overtly so different where we don't know what they are. The other reason why I like these glasses is because not only can they hold wine, I've been really getting into martinis lately. And so I've been making my martinis in this glass, and they're from France. They're pretty hefty. And that's what I was shocked at. I was like, oh, this glass is pretty sturdy and everything. I mean, I'm not smashing it against anything. This is a less delicate glass than most. So if you want to check it out, Sur La Table, I got them on sale during Black Friday. I love them. Oaky, there's a little bit of fruit, there is acidity, it comes forward. I like it a lot. Pick up yourself a bottle. Tag me in it if you want to, but that's that. Okay, everyone, let's start with our first project. So this first project, I think I've mentioned it I mentioned it in the temperature blanket video, that instead of working on a temperature blanket, I'm actually working on the Zodiac Icons blanket by Two of Wands. Shocker, yes, yet another Two of Wands project I'm making, but don't worry, we have a lot to talk about that. Every single astrological season of the month, she will release a new knit-along pattern for it. And so she started in Virgo season. Aries season is what we are currently in, and the blanket's almost done. I have only knit 5 of the current 8 squares, and there's a reason for that. So the first one she released was the Virgo square. Now, here's the thing about the pattern, is that you can You can make them in any of the colors in Hue and Me. Again, yet another draw for me to be in there. Shocker, more Hue and Me I'm gonna be working with. You bet your ass I am in there. And so I wanted to do this because I was like, I've only knit one blanket before, and that was using like size 50 needles, using Woolly's Wow, and I just did simple garter stitch. While that satisfied my chunky blanket need at the time, what I didn't like was that it pilled so easily that I was like, okay, that stays in the closet. I can talk about that for another podcast. But with this, I was like, you know what, Chris, like, do some intarsia work, do some color work right here, like, step into this world. It's just a chart. It's not going to be that difficult. And so I ordered all the yarn, and the best part about Hue and Me, like most, is that you can interchange the colors. They're really going to work. I particularly wanted to use blues. I was really into the contrasting colors. So this is Harbor, the darker blue is Marine, and then the brown is Macchiato, and then the base color is Haze. I was really into these two colors working together as the contrast. I didn't want it to stray as much. I know there are some people using like their greens with the yellows and the purples and stuff, and I'm like, that's good for them. I want something a little bit more neutral with a splash of color that's still giving you the proper shadows and lowlights that can be made throughout the pattern. But like, I was pretty impressed. This is my first like real color work knit project. And okay, so let's talk about it. Look at this back right here. I know that there are different techniques that you can use to like make it a lot more cleaner, make the edges a lot better. I don't particularly need to do that. I don't want to do duplicate stitch. And duplicate stitch, I believe, someone please correct me if I am wrong, it's where you take the contrast color, you're recreating the stockinette stitch over the certain stitches in the chart. Now, I didn't want to have to like count how many I needed to do and go back, because my thing is, once I'm done, like a big proponent of my crafting, once I'm done, I'm done. I don't want to go back and do any more than I need to. And like, I know that that's where we create different types of fabric. That's where we can make it cleaner. But with the Virgo square, I am actually quite glad that this is the first one. I do believe that there can be others that are a little bit easier to dive into, but frankly, if you, like, once I knit this first one, because look, it was pretty complicated when you look at it from a standpoint, and like, are my stitches as tight as they can be? The answer is no. Once I got this one down, I was like, oh, I did that, I can do anything else now, because the like nose and especially the hair and stuff like that, and it really makes you learn how to properly do intarsia knitting, where you are what you do is that you like wind up your balls of yarn, and then let's say, for instance, like, okay, so we're knitting, we have like the neck, we have the little, and I know this looks like a little bit a beard, but it's supposed to be like the shadow of her chin. But let's say we get to like the head, and you can do like, you can hold the yarn in the back. That's what creates all these floats and everything. But you can hold the yarn in the back. What you do is that you're going to be working with two separate balls of this brown color. And so, or like you can make bobbins and stuff. You would knit across from here, start your brown color. You can change to your contrast color here, and then drop the brown color here. Knit whatever blues you need to make, and then with the second ball of brown, you then attach it over here so that you're working separately. And so it's not as like thick or like float heavy in the back, because that's the other thing when we take a look at the back. You can tell where I kind of was doing that at the beginning, and I was like, oh, okay. But by the second time, I was like, I kind of need to make not only two separate brown bobbins, but also two separate haze bobbins. And so I was like, okay, we can kind of do that. And then you also learn how to lock the stitches in place. But I think that the Virgo one looks so good. Can I have done it better? The answer is yes. But I'm glad that I got it done first, because it just really throws you in and you feel so accomplished. That being said, the second one I did, I was like, let me challenge myself to do a simpler one so that I can kind of see if I got the hang of this. And so when I started the blanket, the Aquarius one first dropped. And so here's the Aquarius one. The Aquarius means the water bearer. And so the symbol is the jar with water flowing out. I was really scared that, like, because my contrast color for the water was brown, I was like, am I throwing mud? Am I throwing shit? What is this out of here? But to be honest, once the finished product is seen, I don't see that whatsoever. Especially when I combine them with the other tiles, I don't think that it's gonna look literally like shit. But that could be for whoever over here. But this one was a lot easier than the Virgo one. You were working in more like different quadrants and stuff, and you can work with the you can, like, okay, yeah, your contrast 3 color right here wasn't that bad. And then I really only had to split bobbins for these 2 things, but nothing too crazy. It's majority haze, and all the brown is located into one quadrant of the tile. And, like, overall, like, once I did this one, I was like, well, thank God, this looks so good. And again, I don't think I could have achieved this clean of a square in comparison had I not done the Virgo square first. So I did Aquarius, very cute. Let's talk about, what's the next one I did? Oh, okay. I have thoughts and opinions about this next one. So much so that I'm going to need to take a drink. And it's not about this square. Let's just say that. Okay. Let's talk about the Capricorn square. Here is the Capricorn square. For those of you that do not know what a Capricorn is, or Capricorn like symbol and stuff, it's like the goat with a mermaid tail or like a fish tail and stuff. So for this one, it was, I was pretty shocked at how, like, because it's all symmetrical. And I was worried that it was going to be difficult. It was obviously more challenging than the Aquarius one. But when I'm looking over here, like, this looks so good. My worry, where I started to have concerns, was that the harbor color is a little non-contrast to the haze color. And so you can't really see the, like, mouth at the bottom. And there's another one I'll show you where I kind of have that feeling. Now, very cute. This one was more challenging. Let's take a look at the floats in the back. Again, I could have gone over with duplicate stitch. I did not want to. And so I just was basically doing my bobbins and making all the floats to make that whole thing. I guess you can say, like, oh, is there a worry that, like, what if these were to catch on something? Yes, there is. But I'm trying to take the simplest route when it comes to this craft nonsense right here. Like, again, if I have to do more than I need to, I'm not going to do that. That's just how I am. But overall, very cute. My concern, not with the Capricorn one. So we are in Aries season, like I have said, and now all of the wool and fluff is all over my black tank top. My concern is that because the Aries one has been released, I am not excited to knit that one. Because as nice as it looks, and I had this concern when I was making the Capricorn one, it looks too similar to Capricorn. And I'll throw up a picture, I'll throw up a comparison photo. Now, the problem is here, and again, I am not the one designing this. This is simply my opinion. I'm very aware of that. We could have done anything else for the Capricorn as far as, like, the fishtail, maybe, something else. Because now when you look at the Aries and the Capricorn ones, when they're actually in the blanket, they'll look too similar to discern, well, what's the difference? Because an Aries is a ram, but this one looks very similar. Like, I remember getting the email when the Aries block was released, and I looked at it, and I was like, God damn it, this does not, no offense, look good. I just don't, like, if the Aries one was released first, I'd be all like, this looks great. But knowing after knitting the Capricorn one, I was all like, this looks recycled. And again, I'm not the designer. I will throw any and however much amount of money at Two of Wands. Everyone knows that. I'm a big fan of her. I just believe that the Capricorn and Aries squares look too similar. And I think that something could have been done to both of them to make it a little bit more contrasting. The Aries one has just more detail in the horns and the eyebrows and stuff. And like the Capricorn, and again, when I was knitting the Capricorn one, I was like, I get that it's a goat, but this could be an Aries one if we really wanted to do so. Like, what's stopping you from just making the Capricorn one again and putting more detail on it? And clearly nothing, because that's what the Aries one is, what we got. But yeah, or it's like we could have made the horns a little bit rounder or something else. But that's just my opinion. You tell me whatever you want if you're making it, if you thought the same thing, but like, that just gives me hesitancy. But that's the only part of the hesitancy of the rest of the blanket, because obviously everything else is so different. Oh, and so how I've been doing the blanket is that I would be all like, okay, let's challenge to do like a super hard one, and then let's do a super easy one to kind of give myself time to like rest in between, give it like the mentality is not there. It would take me, if I was like really, really going, it would take me about 2.5 days to make one square, and that is a pretty good lead time, I would say. So after the Capricorn one, I was like, well, I'm kind of like intricate, detailed out. I would like to do something simple. So up next, I did the Libra square. This one, let me see if there's a top. Yes, okay. So this one is the Libra square, and it's gorgeous. Again, you're working with a symmetrical design, and this one was so mindless to me because you're working majority with the haze color, and you're just essentially, you don't have to use too much yarn in the contrasting colors, and that's what I was really looking forward to. These all were not that difficult. It's not as bulky as the other ones. Let's take a look at the floats. As you can see, it might look intimidating, but really it's not. All of these were just from, oh, see, I can, like, you can see where like my needles were going for all of that. Oh, and I've already blocked these, by the way. Well, they're a lot more curly if you do not block them, clearly. Everything, like, the swirls look great. Because at first when you're knitting, I go, oh, I don't know how this is really going to look. By the end, I was like, this is baller. I love this a lot. The stitch definition is incredible. And that's why I was like, thank God this was so mindless. But that's because we're going to get to the one that definitely was not mindless. And I don't know. I didn't mind it. But I knew going into it, I was like, this is going to be difficult. And I purposely forced myself to do this one so that I don't have to do a more complicated, the easier one first. I did the Scorpio one after. Now, here again is my problem with the colors I chose, perhaps. Let me see if I can scoot back. So from back here, you can technically see the color A, which is that light blue color. You technically can. Could it be darker? I think if I were to do this again, I would have switched color A and color B so that the darker blues are on the pincers and the legs and stuff, and then the lighter blues contrast with more of the macchiato color. And again, that's just me, but I'm not going to redo this, but it still looks great. But it was really difficult trying to knit it, especially with this tail. I was like, oh, once we get to the tail, it's going to be no problem. And you can see the backs of the floats on here, nothing too crazy. Overall, a very fun project. There is a reason why I have not worked on more of the squares, because the one I was going to work on next was Sagittarius, and it's just a giant bow and arrow. And then she's released Pisces and Aries. And I've already told you why I don't really want to work on the Aries one. But the Pisces one looks good. But I have been working on a lot of other things that have to be kept secret for now, but we will talk about them in May's podcast for sure. But that's the Zodiac icon blanket. I have the 5 squares so far. I'm excited to see where it all culminates. I'm a Taurus, so I'm very excited to see that square. With that being said, I also like the way so as I've said before, I think that I just find that my knitting gauge is a lot larger than pattern recommendation. But with the blanket, I don't mind that whatsoever, because I would rather have a larger blanket than a smaller one. And that translates into, especially a stockinette blanket, I'm not entirely sure how much the curling is going to be affected, especially if you're going to be I'm imagining it's going to be built once all the squares are done, 3, 3, 3 by 4, so that you have the length. So that one I'm just like, okay, that makes more sense. But Overall, a very fun project. If you want to pick up the kit, go to Lion Brand. I'm not too sure as to how much yarn is actually truly spent. Like, because when I bought the kit, it was like 9 balls of the main background color, and then it's 2 balls each of the contrasting colors. Gotta be honest, I don't know if that's gonna hold true by the end of the project. I think you might have to buy, or at least again, for me, because I'm knitting larger, I might have to buy 1 more of each of the things. But that's just me, someone correct me, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that is the Zodiac Icons blanket. So that last one didn't record. And now I have to say all that shit again. So we're gonna get another drink in because I just, oh, God damn it. So our next project we're gonna be talking about is this gorgeous little baby blanket behind me. There's no name for it because I didn't write down the pattern, and knowing what I'm doing now, I definitely should have, but I'll go over the pattern, and if I need to recreate it, maybe I'll do that one day, but who knows. This baby blanket is for my friends Kyle and Kate. They're about to have their baby girl in April, and so I wanted to challenge myself with making them a baby blanket because I notoriously went up to them and said, like, I don't do those. I don't like doing them. I don't like, and the reason why I don't like doing them is because I am always late with the deadline. Because you think with the baby, you're all like, huh, okay, well, I have, from the announcement, I probably have about 7 months, maybe 5 months to make a literal smaller sized blanket. It can't be that difficult. But I've notoriously been late on like 3 baby blankets already. I will like give up halfway through. My last baby blanket I made, Haley, I made it for you. Like I was like 7 months late after the baby was born. And like that was me putting the border on it and stuff. And I don't know. It's just something I just can't bring myself to do sometimes. I'm not sure why, but this one I was like, let me right my wrongs right here. But I was also really inspired. I was in their nursery and Kyle was like, oh, Kate really likes this crib that we have. And so I was like, okay, cool. And I wasn't thinking I was going to make a blanket per se. I was probably going to make something else. And then I was in Joann's for something else and I saw this particular yarn and I was all like, you know what, Chris? It's time to right your wrongs with a baby blanket. And so I picked up 6 balls of Respun Thick and Quick from Lion Brand. It is a part of their sustainable stitching line. I had never worked with it before, but I picked up the colors Wisteria, Cameo, and Espresso, and I was going for a muted but yet feminine, modern baby look right here. I wanted stripes, but I wanted stitch definition, and that's kind of where this came from. I'll go get it, and then we'll talk more about it in detail. Okay, let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. So here is the blanket up close. I was going for I wanted something color changing, but I also wanted more of stitch definition. I wanted a stitch that really stood out. And so I essentially just Googled like, oh, crochet stitches that are like crazy or something like that. And so the one I settled on, I'll try to find if I could find it and put the link in. It's called the Primrose Stitch. And essentially what you're doing is that after your chains, you're going to be throwing. So you're going to be putting a single crochet, like a chain 2 or 3, I believe, and then a second single crochet in that same stitch. When you're doing the return row, you're doing 3 double crochets in that chain space. So that creates like a little floral stitch pattern as we keep going. And so originally I was gonna do like stitch, 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 and then I like to bring up my yarn and stuff. But the problem is that when I was doing 4 rows of one color, the little like floats coming up were too large, and I was like, oh, I'll just cut them and sew them all in. All you need is a movie to sew something back in for all that. So overall, very good. I was super into the Dusty Rose situation. My only gripe with it is that, and this is on me 100%, the yarn itself is category 6 bulky weight or super bulky weight, and I wanted something because it would get done faster. That's fine. I know the argument could be, why are you using super bulky for a baby when it's like, girl, we're already putting babies in chenille yarn, whether that be worsted or bulky. So they're like, that does not matter. What my gripe is that it is hand wash, lay flat to dry. And I found that out halfway through stitching when I looked at the ball band, because you really want a machine wash and machine dried product just because it's easier on the parents. You don't know what mess can be made. But honestly, I hand washed it and laid flat to dry to block it, and I just loved it. And you know what? Kyle, Kate, if you're watching, that's what it is. Be grateful. No, I'm kidding. I mean, like, it's still great. I think that it's going to go well in your nursery, and I definitely, especially with this color, again, modern baby. That's kind of what I was going for here. And overall, I hope you guys like it. I hope she likes it, even though she doesn't have a thought because she is an infant when she will be born. But look at this. It's just so, like, the stitch definition, the colors, it's just, I'm really here for it. I really need to write down that pattern for it. But I loved it. I was very proud of myself to get the baby blanket done. But overall, very good. I hope you guys love it. Okay, so we've come to that part of the podcast called the learning curve. So every single time we do this, I drudge up a project from Crochet's past, and we're going to go over it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what I learned, would I do it again, what yarn I used, if I can remember it. I surprisingly have like a good amount of them to go over because I've been doing this for over 10 years, so we can really go and talk about any of that. But let's get into it, shall we? So this is the long double crochet infinity scarf, or cowl, and it's by All About Ami, and I think that's super special because she has super taken off within the last year, I would say. I mean, she has like a bunch of patterns, don't get me wrong, but I'd say that like she got viral because she made the like daisy granny square blanket out of Hue and Me. And then she also made like the Daisy Granny Square cardigan as well. And you can get those kits and patterns on Lion Brand, or go on her website for all of that. But this was from Tumblr. These are her Tumblr days. I remember going on Tumblr, and that just tells you what kind of, like, what year this was. I believe I made this in 2013. And the pattern calls for 2 balls of Woolies Thick and Quick. And I don't even think they make this color anymore. I want to say it's called like denim, and it's like a marled blue. And I have not seen it since, so I'm glad I picked it up and made it. In theory, like, you would think like, oh, since it's really thin and stuff. But what the pattern calls for is that you're just doing double crochets. And I want to say you're doing like a double crochet chain across the row. And then you're just double crocheting in the second double crochets after, like, from under it. And again, you can see it's pretty, like, it's chunky stitches. I think you use like a P hook or something. I did not look at the pattern before I thought about this. Again, I'm just going off of what I remember from years ago. But this, I remember, this pattern was my go-to. If I'm going to be making someone something, I would go do this pattern. I've made like, I want to say I've made this for like 5 separate people now. What's it called? In different colors and everything. And really, it just stands the test of time. So much so, I brought this when I went to France in 2020. Like, it was before the pandemic. Let me clarify that it was before the pandemic. Oh, ooh, the lighting really brought it out. That was crazy. So I brought this to France in 2020, and I'll put the picture up when I wore it to Disneyland Paris. But you can see, like, it is like super long. You can wear it no problem. And then when you throw it up, it creates a really awesome infinity scarf. Like, I love it. It just like insulates your neck properly. It's simple enough, but yet still sophisticated. And you can just play around with like how wide you kind of want it to be. But I know this looks weird in a tank top, but so be it. But like, that's what I loved about it. I don't wear this one anymore because I have other cowls I'm making, and I just have other ones I would prefer to wear, but I keep it behind the Rose Bridge plaid blanket scarf on my little wall right there, just as like a reminder to be all like, hey, these were some of your first ones, and like, remember like where it came from. Now, I will say the other reason why we're talking about this is not only is this like 7-8 years old, I will say, it's given me inspiration to kind of riff off of like, okay, what would a man want in an infinity scarf? And like, what are the basics? What are the simplicities? And I love, it's funny because like, as much as I want to test myself with complicated patterns, I also want stuff that is simple, easy to do. There's a reason why we like beginner stuff, and it's an easy way in for beginners. So please go check out the website for this. But yeah, like, the long double crochet infinity scarf and or cowl. Again, don't know the name properly, by All About Ami. Super great. Woolly's thick and quick, 2 balls. You can make it within like, I don't know, 2-3 days if you really want to. And all you got to do is just seam up the ends right here. And yeah, overall, very, very nice. Machine washable and dryable, unlike my last project. Yeah, overall, that's the learning curve. Would I make it again? I have made it multiple times for multiple people. I think in my day and age now, I would not. I think if you're going to like craft fairs and stuff, you can make it there. But me personally, I would rather do something else. But it's given me inspiration to riff off of what comes from simplicity, what comes from chunky stitch, what comes from singular color. Like, that's kind of what I was going off of. So overall, very good, very nostalgic, I would say. But yeah, that is a big throwback for me. And that's everything I have to talk about this month. I know that it's only 2 projects, and then we had the one learning curve, but really, I think there was still a lot to talk about, especially with that Zodiac blanket scarf. I had some opinions. But overall, very fun. There is a lot more in store with Stitch and Chris. If you're not following, I am on Instagram. I have also newly succumbed and made a TikTok forever. The time being how long that is on there. And so I will also be posting those as shorts on YouTube. And we're going over Stitch and Bitching and kind of over, like, I'm kind of just ranting about certain things while I knit or crochet. But I think go follow me on there. Please subscribe to the channel if you liked this content. Comment on whether or not you liked any of the things I made. If not, let's have a discussion. Let's fight. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot in store behind the scenes at Stitch and Chris. I'm working on so much that will be revealed in May. And I know I love what's going on. I hope y'all like it too. But just know that I am planning some very, very big things when it comes to the brand of what I'm trying to do in general. But again, if you liked this, thanks for hanging out with me. I enjoy doing this. I really do look forward to just like talking about stuff I make half the time. But yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one for sure.